Supreme Warrior Kexthor paced on his bridge, his claws clicking against the metallic floor. 5 hours had passed since the humans requested their negotiation time, and something was bothering him. He couldn't quite put his claw on what it was. "Versik," he called to his science officer. "Show me the human satellite movements again." The holographic display lit up, showing hundreds of Earth satellites shifting their orbits slightly. Each movement seemed random, disorganized, exactly what you'd expect from a primitive species trying to maintain their communication networks during a crisis. "See." Versik pointed to several clusters. "They keep adjusting their weather monitoring devices, probably trying to maintain their primitive forecasting systems." But Kexthor's instincts, honed over 30 years of planetary conquests, were tingling. "Deploy scout ships to inspect the nearest satellites. Something doesn't feel right." In the underwater command center near Singapore, Captain Lai Wei received the alert about approaching scout ships. She smiled, her fingers dancing across the quantum-encrypted console. "Right on schedule," she murmured. "They're exactly as predictable as the psychologists said they would be." She opened a secure channel to all submarine crews in the Pacific region. "Initiate protocol misdirection. Let's give our guests something obvious to find." Across the ocean, submarines began releasing decoy buoys. These devices were deliberately designed to look like crude weapons platforms, just advanced enough to catch the Draconians' attention, but primitive enough to dismiss. High above Earth, the scout ships quickly detected the decoy buoys. "Supreme Warrior," the lead scout reported excitedly. "We've found hidden weapon platforms. The humans were trying to secretly deploy defenses." Kexthor roared with laughter, his earlier concerns forgotten. "Pathetic. Show me these mighty weapons." The scout's scan data appeared on his screen, showing what appeared to be simple missile launchers and electromagnetic pulse generators. To the Draconians, they looked like a child's toys compared to their advanced technology. "Should we destroy them, sir?" the scout asked. "No," Kexthor replied, still chuckling. "Let them think their little surprise remains hidden. It will make their defeat even more crushing." Meanwhile, in the Rocky Mountain facility, Dr. Kumar's team was making final adjustments to the real quantum phase network. The Draconian scouts had completely ignored the actual satellites, focusing entirely on the decoy buoys. "General Chen," Kumar reported, "phase synchronization is at 98%. The quantum entanglement field is stable and expanding exactly as planned." Chen studied the holographic display, showing the positions of all Draconian ships. They had spread themselves thin across Earth's orbit, positioning their vessels for maximum coverage during their planned invasion. It was exactly the formation Earth's defenders had hoped for. "Time until full deployment?" she asked. 3 hours, 17 minutes, Kumar replied. "Every time they investigate one of our decoys, it gives us more time to fine-tune the quantum grid." At the United Nations, Ambassador Rodriguez was putting on the performance of her life. She had just finished another session of negotiations with Kexthor, appearing increasingly desperate and frightened. "Please, great Supreme Warrior," she had begged. "Just 2 more hours. Some nations are still resistant, but they're weakening. Your patience and mercy will be remembered in Earth's history." Kexthor had granted the extension, convinced that Earth's leaders were crumbling under pressure. His fleet maintained their spread formation, each ship precisely positioned to launch a simultaneous attack on all major cities. None of them noticed that Earth's seemingly primitive satellites had gradually formed a perfect geometric pattern around the planet. The quantum phase generators hummed silently in their disguised housings, building power for what was to come. Earth's trap wasn't just being set. It was already closed. The Draconians just didn't know it yet. 2 hours before the Draconians' deadline, massive doors began opening in the Earth's most remote locations. In the Sahara Desert, sand shifted to reveal a hidden facility stretching for miles underground. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, a seemingly ancient temple split apart, exposing advanced technology beneath centuries-old stone. At the Antarctic Research Station, Dr. Emma Torres watched as the ice sheets parted, revealing rows of quantum phase generators that had been hidden there for decades. She smiled, remembering how tourists had taken pictures of this scientific research station for years, never knowing what lay beneath. All Southern Hemisphere facilities report ready, she announced over the secure quantum channel. Power levels at optimal capacity. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, General Chen nodded in satisfaction. North American facilities. Online and powered up. Dr. Kumar reported. The Chinese just activated their Gobi Desert complex. Russians are reporting full power from their Siberian installations. On the Eternal Flames Bridge, Science Officer Versik's tail twitched nervously as new energy readings began appearing on her screens. She zoomed in on the Antarctic region, where strange power signatures were emanating from what had appeared to be a simple research base. Supreme Warrior, she called out, I'm detecting unusual. If you report one more unusual reading, I will have you transferred to garbage disposal duty, Kexthor snapped. The humans are using their remaining time to hide their leaders in underground bunkers. How predictable. Versik's scales flattened in submission, but she couldn't shake her unease. The energy patterns she was seeing didn't match any known human technology. In fact, they didn't match any technology she'd ever encountered. Meanwhile, in a hidden facility beneath the Indian Ocean, Dr. Raj Patel prepared to reveal humanity's greatest technological achievement. Banks of quantum computers lined the walls, each one controlling part of the vast network that would soon trap the Draconian fleet. It's almost poetic, he said to his team. They think we're decades away from quantum technology, but we mastered it 15 years ago. We just chose to keep it hidden. His assistant, Dr. Sarah Wong, nodded as she monitored the power fluctuations. The hardest part wasn't developing the technology, she said. It was making sure nobody knew we had it. Do you know how difficult it was to keep publishing fake research papers showing failed quantum experiments? Above them, the Draconian fleet continued their standard invasion preparation. Supply ships moved into position, carrying the ground troops and occupation forces that would never reach Earth's surface. Fighter squadrons practiced their attack formations, their pilots confident in their superior technology. Ambassador Rodriguez had requested one final video conference with Supreme Warrior Kexthor. As her image appeared on his screen, he noticed something different. The fear in her eyes was gone, replaced by something else. Was that amusement? Supreme Warrior, she said, her voice no longer trembling. Before your deadline arrives, would you like to know what Earth's answer is to your generous offer? Kexthor leaned forward, expecting to hear their surrender. Instead, Rodriguez smiled, a predator's smile that made his scales tingle with sudden apprehension. Earth's answer, she said calmly, is this. At her signal, every hidden facility on Earth activated simultaneously. The quantum phase generators powered up, their combined energy revealing humanity's true technological level to the stunned Draconians. Versik's console erupted with alerts as her worst fears were confirmed. The primitive world they'd planned to conquer had been anything but primitive. And now, it was too late to escape. The quantum phase generators hummed in perfect synchronization across the planet. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Dr. Kumar's fingers flew across his console as he initiated the final sequence of Operation Ghost Protocol. All generators at full power, he announced. Quantum field stabilized. Ready on your command, General. General Chen looked at the massive display, showing all 300 Draconian ships spread across Earth's orbit. Each vessel was marked with a glowing red dot, waiting to be trapped. She took a deep breath and pressed her palm against the quantum-secured authentication panel. Begin Operation Ghost Protocol, she ordered. Target and phase shift each ship individually. On the Eternal Flames Bridge, Supreme Warrior Kexthor watched in growing horror as strange energy fields began forming around his ships. These weren't the primitive force field attempts he'd expected. These were perfectly controlled quantum phase bubbles, technology that even the Draconian Empire hadn't mastered. Impossible, he roared. They're supposed to be primitive. Versik, get us out of here. The science officer's claws scrambled across her controls. Our engines aren't responding. The quantum field is affecting our drive systems. One by one, the Draconian ships became enveloped in shimmering bubbles of energy. Inside each bubble, time itself began to slow. Kex Thor watched helplessly as his crew's movements became sluggish, their voices deepening to impossible lows as time dilation took effect. In the Indian Ocean facility, Dr. Patel monitored the quantum phase readings with satisfaction. Phase bubble 1 through 50, stable and contained, he reported. Time dilation ratio holding at 1,000 to 1. Explain that in simple terms. General Chen's voice came through the quantum comm. For every 1,000 minutes that pass outside their ships, Dr. Wong explained, only 1 minute passes inside. They're essentially frozen in time, but fully conscious and able to observe the outside world. Ambassador Rodriguez, now speaking from the UN's Real Command Center, appeared on the main screen. How are our guests enjoying their new temporal accommodations? See for yourself, Dr. Kumar said, patching through a live feed from inside the Eternal Flame. The feed showed Kex Thor and his crew moving in extreme slow motion, their expressions frozen in masks of disbelief and fear. They could see everything happening outside their ships, but were powerless to respond. In Antarctica, Dr. Torres watched as the quantum field readings stabilized across all ships. Southern Hemisphere phase bubbles all holding steady, she reported. No signs of quantum field degradation. The Draconian fleet, once so threatening, now hung motionless in space. Their weapons were useless, their engines dead, their communications cut off from the outside world. Each ship had become its own temporal prison. Send the message, General Chen ordered. Every screen and communication device on the Draconian ships suddenly activated, displaying text in their own language. Welcome to Earth's temporal detention facility. While you experience a few minutes inside your ships, years will pass outside. Consider this time to reflect on the mistake of underestimating humanity. We will release you when we feel you have learned your lesson. In the Sahara facility, technicians watched their monitors as the last few ships were successfully phase shifted. The entire operation had taken less than 5 minutes, but its effects would last for years. Operation Ghost Protocol complete, Dr. Kumar announced. All 300 ships successfully contained. No casualties on either side. General Chen nodded in satisfaction. Earth had won its first interstellar conflict without firing a single shot. The galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson about judging a civilization by its appearances. On the edges of the Sol system, 3 Draconian scout ships watched in stunned silence as their entire invasion fleet vanished before their eyes. There had been no explosions, no debris, no signs of combat, just 300 warships disappearing as if they had never existed. Captain Zexnar of the scout ship, Swiftwing, fumbled with his communication controls. This is Scout Captain Zexnar to Imperial Command. Emergency transmission. Priority 1. The response came quickly. Imperial Command receiving. Report, Captain. The fleet, the entire fleet. Zexnar's voice shook. They're gone. All of them. 300 ships, including Supreme Warrior Kex Thor's flagship, just vanished. There was a long pause on the other end. Explain vanished, Captain. Were they destroyed? No, Command. No debris, no energy signatures, no radiation. One moment they were there, the next. He swallowed hard. It's as if they were erased from existence. In the Imperial Palace on Dracus Prime, the Emperor's War Council erupted into chaos. The largest invasion fleet in Imperial history had disappeared without a trace, and no one could explain how. It's impossible. Grand General Vex Thor, Kex Thor's father, slammed his fist on the council table. No primitive pre-FTL civilization could destroy our ships without leaving evidence. Who said anything about destruction? Admiral Lystra, head of Imperial Intelligence, studied the preliminary reports. The scout ship's sensors show no signs of weapons fire. Whatever the humans did, it wasn't a conventional attack. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other civilizations were receiving news of the incident. On the trading world of New Singapore, where species from 1,000 worlds conducted business, rumors spread like wildfire. A Centauri merchant whispered to his Proximan friend in a crowded bar, "Did you hear? The entire Draconian invasion fleet disappeared near Earth." Disappeared. The Proximan's crystalline structure flickered with interest. "What do you mean, disappeared?" "Just that. Poof. Gone. The humans aren't saying anything. They're still broadcasting their primitive television shows and radio signals like nothing happened." In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, General Chen watched the galactic news feeds with satisfaction. "The rumors are spreading exactly as planned," she told her staff. "Every species in the galaxy is talking about the mysterious ghost world that made a Draconian fleet vanish." Dr. Kumar nodded as he monitored the phase-shifted fleet. Inside their quantum bubbles, the Draconian crews experienced just a few minutes while hours passed outside. They could see their scout ships fleeing, could watch the galaxy's reaction to their disappearance, but could do nothing about it. "Should we tell them what really happened?" Dr. Torres asked from her Antarctic station. "The galaxy, I mean." "Not yet," Ambassador Rodriguez replied from the UN. "Let them wonder. Let them worry. Every species that might have thought about invading Earth is now reconsidering their plans." On Dracus Prime, the Emperor himself studied the reports. His scaled hands trembled slightly as he read the scout ship's sensor logs again and again. "A primitive world," he muttered. "We thought they were primitive. But what kind of civilization can make 300 warships vanish without a trace?" The answer, of course, was one that had mastered the art of deception. Earth continued broadcasting its seemingly primitive signals, maintaining its appearance of technological innocence. But now that innocence carried a warning: underestimate humanity at your own risk. 1 month after the disappearance of the Draconian fleet, the galaxy's political landscape had changed dramatically. In the Grand Council chamber of Dracus Prime, Emperor Nexthar faced the first serious challenge to imperial authority in 3 centuries. "The Seventh Fleet refuses to participate in any further conquests," reported Admiral Lystra, her scales dulled with stress. "Their crews are threatening to resign if ordered near Earth's solar system." The Emperor's tail lashed in frustration. An entire fleet refusing orders. "This is unprecedented." "It gets worse," the Admiral continued. 3 of our colony worlds have declared independence. They say if we can't protect our own invasion fleets, we can't protect them either." Across the galaxy, on the diplomatic station New Geneva, representatives from 50 alien species gathered to discuss the implications of Earth's mysterious defense capabilities. Ambassador Zerl of the Centaurian Republic addressed the assembly, his crystalline form glowing with concern. "We must face facts. Everything we thought we knew about technological progression might be wrong. How many other primitive worlds are hiding advanced technology?" In the markets of New Singapore, traders had begun refusing to transport military cargo anywhere near Earth's sector. Insurance rates for ships passing within 100 light-years of Sol had tripled. A Proximan cargo captain named Bright Spark explained to his frustrated clients, "Sorry, but I'm not risking my ship. You saw what happened to the Draconians. 300 ships, just gone. No one knows how they did it." Meanwhile, on Earth, the United Nations Space Defense Council held an emergency session. Ambassador Rodriguez presented the latest intelligence reports. "The Draconian Empire is falling apart," she announced to the assembled leaders. "Their reputation for invincibility is shattered. 3 more colony worlds declared independence this morning." General Chen's hologram flickered as she joined from the Rocky Mountain facility. "And our guests? How are they enjoying their temporal vacation?" Dr. Kumar appeared on another screen. "They've experienced approximately 45 minutes from their perspective. The quantum phase bubbles are stable. They've watched an entire month pass in what feels like less than an hour to them. In orbit around Earth, inside the flagship Eternal Flame, Supreme Warrior Kex Thor raged in slow motion. Through the ship's windows, he could see supply vessels from his own empire changing course to avoid Earth's space, their captains too frightened to even approach the system. Back in the Draconian Imperial Palace, the Emperor made a decision that would change galactic history. "Send a diplomatic mission to Earth," he ordered, each word seeming to pain him. "Not to negotiate surrender. We both know those ships are still alive somewhere. But to understand." Admiral Ystra bowed. "And what should they ask, my Emperor?" "Ask them." He paused, his pride warring with necessity. "Ask them how long they've been waiting for someone to try invading them. Ask them what else they're hiding." On Earth, humanity continued its masterful performance. Television broadcasts showed primitive rocket launches and clumsy space stations. Radio telescopes transmitted basic signals into space. Everything appeared normal, except for one small detail. No one dared attack them anymore. In the Antarctic facility, Dr. Torres watched the latest galactic news reports with amusement. "They're calling us the ghost world now. Every conspiracy theorist in the galaxy has a theory about what happened to the Draconian fleet." "Let them wonder," Ambassador Rodriguez replied from New York. "Sometimes the best defense isn't a powerful weapon. It's making everyone too afraid to find out if you have one." 6 months after the Draconian fleet's disappearance, Earth decided it was time to reveal the truth. Ambassador Rodriguez stood before the Galactic Council on New Geneva, facing representatives from over 200 species. "Distinguished members of the Council," she began, her voice clear and confident, "Earth is ready to demonstrate what happened to the Draconian invasion fleet." A murmur ran through the assembly. The Draconian Emperor himself sat in the front row, his scales gleaming under the chamber's lights. "The fleet is alive and well," Rodriguez continued. "In fact, for them, only about 3 hours have passed." She pressed a button on her podium, and a massive hologram appeared above the council chamber. It showed all 300 Draconian ships, perfectly preserved in shimmering quantum bubbles. "We call it quantum phase technology," she explained. "Each ship exists in a bubble where time moves much slower than the outside world. They are perfectly safe, fully conscious, and completely unable to harm anyone." Dr. Kumar appeared next to her through a quantum projection. "Allow me to demonstrate," he said, typing commands into his tablet. One of the quantum bubbles suddenly became visible to everyone in Earth's orbit. Inside, they could see the crew moving in extreme slow motion, like insects trapped in amber. The Emperor stood up, his voice shaking. "My people, they're alive. Every single one." Rodriguez nodded. "We never intended to harm them. We simply needed to teach a lesson about judging worlds by their appearances." In the Rocky Mountain facility, General Chen watched the Council's reaction through their secure feed. "Show them the rest," she ordered. Dr. Kumar nodded and activated Earth's full quantum detection grid. Thousands of satellites suddenly revealed their true nature, forming complex geometric patterns around the planet. For decades, Rodriguez told the stunned council, "We've hidden our true technological level." Every primitive rocket launch was carefully staged. Every clumsy satellite deployment was part of the plan. On the quantum screens, they showed recordings of underground facilities opening, revealing advanced technology that had been hidden for years. The Amazon temple's ancient stones shifted, exposing quantum computers. The Antarctic ice sheets parted to show massive power generators. "But why?" asked the Centaurian ambassador. "Why pretend to be primitive?" "Because," Rodriguez smiled, "the best way to understand potential enemies is to let them think you're harmless." We learned more about galactic politics through our deception than we ever could through open advancement. Inside the Eternal Flame, Supreme Warrior Kex Thor watched the revelation in slow-motion horror. His crew had witnessed 6 months pass in what felt like hours to them. And now they were being used as a galactic object lesson. "We are prepared to release the fleet," Rodriguez announced. "But first, we want to establish some ground rules for future relations." The Emperor nodded eagerly. "Anything. First, the Draconian Empire will respect the independence of its former colonies. Second, all species will recognize Earth's right to develop at its own pace without interference. And third," she paused, looking directly at the Emperor, "you will remember that appearances can be deceiving." Dr. Torres, watching from Antarctica, smiled as the council erupted into excited discussion. "Should we show them our other technologies?" she asked over the secure channel. "Not yet," General Chen replied. "Let's keep a few surprises in reserve. After all, humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's knowing when to reveal it." 1 year after Earth's revelation to the Galactic Council, the time had come to release the Draconian fleet. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Dr. Kumar prepared the quantum phase generators for power down. "All ships are synchronized," he reported. "From their perspective, they've experienced about 6 hours since their attempted invasion." General Chen nodded. "Begin release sequence." Around Earth's orbit, the quantum bubbles began to shimmer and fade. Inside the eternal flame, Supreme Warrior Kex Thor watched as time suddenly returned to normal speed. His crew stumbled, adjusting to the change. "Supreme Warrior," Versik called out, checking her instruments. "A full year has passed outside our ships." Before Kex Thor could respond, a new figure appeared on their main screen. It was Emperor Nexthar himself. "My warriors," the Emperor said, his voice heavy with emotion. "Welcome back to normal time. Much has changed while you were detained." Around the fleet, Earth's true defensive capabilities were now clearly visible. The quantum satellite network gleamed in orbit, no longer disguised as primitive communications devices. Ships from dozens of alien species hung in nearby space, watching the historic moment. Ambassador Rodriguez appeared next to the Emperor's image. "Supreme Warrior Kex Thor," she said, "your fleet is free to leave. Your engines have been restored to full power." Kex Thor stood from his command chair, his pride warring with his diplomatic training. Finally, he bowed his head slightly. "The Draconian Empire acknowledges Earth's right to develop without interference." In the Antarctic facility, Dr. Torres monitored the fleet's power signatures as they prepared to depart. "They're not even thinking about retaliation," she noted. "Amazing what 6 hours of helpless observation can do to change someone's perspective." The Draconian ships formed up into departure formation, but they moved with careful precision, keeping their weapons powered down. As they passed Earth's quantum defense grid, several crew members could be seen recording the technology with obvious fascination. On New Geneva, the Galactic Council was in session, finalizing the new interstellar protocols that Earth's revelation had inspired. The Deception Clause was added to first contact procedures. No civilization could be judged solely by its apparent level of technology. "Earth has changed everything," the Centaurian ambassador commented to his Proximan colleague. "Now, every time we encounter a new world, we have to wonder what they're hiding." Back on Earth, the United Nations Space Defense Council held its final meeting of the year. Ambassador Rodriguez stood before the assembled leaders, reading from her tablet. 17 new trade agreements signed this month alone," she reported. "The galaxy has realized it's better to have us as partners than mysteries." "And the Draconian Empire?" "Fully reformed," General Chen replied. "They're actually helping their former colonies establish independent governments. Apparently, being trapped in slow time gave them a new perspective on patience and diplomacy." Dr. Kumar looked up from his screens. "And our quantum technology?" "Still largely secret," Rodriguez smiled. "We've revealed what we needed to, but as humanity's representative, I think we should keep a few surprises in reserve. After all, the galaxy learned a valuable lesson about underestimating Earth. We shouldn't spoil that by showing all our cards at once." As the sun set over the Rocky Mountains, Earth's quantum defense grid glimmered in orbit, a visible reminder that appearances could be deceiving. Humanity had emerged onto the galactic stage, not through conquest or aggression, but through patience, innovation, and the wisdom to know when to hide and when to reveal their strength. The age of pretending to be primitive was over, but the art of strategic deception, that would remain a uniquely human advantage in the vast game of galactic politics. Supreme Warrior Kexthor stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Flame, his scaled fingers drumming against the metallic surface of his captain's chair. His yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic display of the blue-green planet before him. Earth, as its inhabitants called it, looked deceptively peaceful from space. Another primitive world, he muttered, his forked tongue flickering between sharp teeth. Just like all the others. Behind him, Science Officer Versik cleared her throat nervously. Supreme Warrior, there's something unusual about their energy readings. Kexthor turned his massive head, scales gleaming under the bridge's harsh lighting. Explain. Their technology appears inconsistent, Versik said, her claws tapping rapidly on her datapad. They have primitive combustion vehicles on the ground, but their orbital satellites show traces of quantum technology. It's as if they can't decide whether to be primitive or advanced. Kexthor laughed, the sound echoing across the bridge. We've seen this before, Versik. Some worlds discover pieces of advanced technology, but lack the intelligence to fully utilize it. They're probably using salvaged parts from crashed ships. The science officer's tail twitched uncertainly. Sir, I don't think. The Draconian Empire has conquered 37 pre-FTL civilizations, Kexthor interrupted. Each time, someone like you finds some unusual reading or strange anomaly. And each time, we crush them within days. He stood up, his 3-meter height impressive even for a Draconian. Deploy the fleet in standard conquest formation. Outside the flagship, 300 warships moved into position. Their dark hulls blocked out the stars, each vessel bristling with weapons that could reduce cities to ash. The fleet had been designed to overwhelm any planetary defense system through sheer numbers and firepower. On Earth's surface, unknown to the Draconians, things were far from peaceful. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that officially didn't exist, General Sarah Chen watched the alien fleet's movement on a quantum-encrypted display. They're following the exact pattern intelligence predicted, she said to the room full of military officers and scientists. Draconians are nothing if not predictable. Dr. James Kumar, the lead scientist of Project Ghost, nodded in agreement. Their arrogance makes them vulnerable. They scan for obvious weapons, missiles, energy shields, laser arrays. But they never look for the subtle things. Like our quantum phase generators, General Chen smiled. Exactly, Kumar replied. They're so confident in their superiority that they haven't even noticed our detection grid. To them, our satellites look like primitive communication relays. Around the planet, disguised within what appeared to be regular weather and communication satellites, Earth's quantum detection grid mapped every Draconian ship's energy signature. Each vessel was being tagged, analyzed, and prepared for what was to come. Back on the Eternal Flame, Kexthor issued final orders for the invasion. Begin standard intimidation protocol. Target their largest cities with warning shots. Show them the futility of resistance. Versik made one last attempt. Sir, shouldn't we conduct more detailed scans? These energy readings. Enough, Kexthor roared. I didn't become Supreme Warrior by being paranoid about primitive worlds. Launch the attack at dawn, Earth time. Let's give them one last night to contemplate their fate. As the Draconian fleet moved into attack position, they remained unaware that they were the ones being positioned. Like pieces on a chessboard, each ship was being maneuvered exactly where Earth's defenders wanted them. The trap was nearly ready. Humanity's greatest deception was about to begin. Dawn broke over New York City, and with it came the message that humanity had prepared for decades. The Draconian transmission boomed across every radio frequency, television channel, and digital screen worldwide. People of Earth, Supreme Warrior Kex Thor's voice rumbled in perfectly translated English. Your planet is surrounded. Surrender now, and you may serve the Draconian Empire with dignity. Resist and face extinction. In the United Nations Security Council's underground bunker, Ambassador Maria Rodriguez straightened her suit jacket and looked at the assembled world leaders on the secure screens around her. Well, she said with a slight smile, shall we give them what they're expecting? The Chinese president nodded. Proceed with Protocol Omega. Let's show them how primitive we can be. Ambassador Rodriguez sat before the transmission device, carefully adjusting her expression to show just the right amount of fear. The camera rolled, broadcasting her image to the Draconian fleet. Mighty Supreme Warrior, she began, her voice trembling perfectly. Earth is honored by your attention. We request 12 hours to discuss your generous offer among our various nations. We are a divided people, you see, and need time to reach a unified decision. On the Eternal Flames Bridge, Kex Thor laughed. Look at them scramble, he said to his officers. Just like all the others. They'll spend hours arguing among themselves before surrendering. Sir, Versick interrupted, I'm detecting unusual movement from their satellites. Of course you are, Kex Thor snorted. They're probably trying to communicate with their different territories. Grant them their 12 hours. It will make our victory even sweeter. Meanwhile, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral John Kimura watched as hundreds of quantum-enabled submarines silently moved into position. Each vessel carried something that appeared to be a simple communications buoy. In reality, they were components of Earth's quantum phase network. All vessels report ready, his executive officer announced. The Chinese and Russian fleets are in position. European units confirm deployment. African task force standing by. Kimura nodded. Begin synchronized surfacing. Let's give our guests something interesting to look at. Across Earth's oceans, submarines began surfacing in a carefully choreographed display. To the Draconians watching from orbit, it looked like a primitive show of force, exactly what they expected from a frightened civilization. In the Rocky Mountain facility, Dr. Kumar's team worked frantically to fine-tune their quantum phase generators. The submarines are giving us perfect coverage, he reported to General Chen. Each surfacing creates a small distraction, letting us adjust the satellite network without detection. Time remaining? Chen asked. 8 hours until full deployment. The Draconians won't know what hit them. Back at the UN, Ambassador Rodriguez continued her masterful performance. She engaged in lengthy, seemingly disorganized negotiations with the Draconians, appearing to struggle with simple technical terms and showing appropriate awe at their technology. Your ships are so magnificent, she told Kex Thor during their third communication. We've never seen anything like them. Some of our nations wish to surrender immediately, while others, she paused dramatically, need more convincing. Kex Thor preened at the flattery. Perhaps a demonstration is in order, a small one, to help your people make the right choice. Oh no, Rodriguez gasped, her performance perfect. Please, give us more time. Just 6 more hours. We're very close to reaching an agreement. As the Draconians granted her request, satisfied with their apparent control of the situation, Earth's true preparations continued unseen. The quantum grid was nearly complete, each satellite and submarine buoy forming part of a vast, invisible web. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or technology. It was in their ability to play the long game, to appear weak while marshaling their true strength. And the Draconians, like so many others, were falling for it completely.